Craig, welcome to the show.
Hey, this is going to be a lot of fun, Eric. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I've been a huge fan of your work for a while. If you haven't dug in on Craig's work, you need to immediately following this podcast. But let's start off. Tell the listeners about where you're from and what kind of athlete were you growing up?
Yeah, so I'm a farm boy from Canada, actually. Born in this little small town of Stratford, Ontario, which is about 2 hours from Toronto. It's also the hometown of Justin Bieber, believe it or not.
Wow.
And so in Stratford, you pretty much do one thing, and that's play ice hockey. I mean, ice hockey is everything there. And you can be a great ice hockey player in Stratford, but still be like average in the city. So I realized pretty quickly I wasn't going to make it to the NHL, which is, a lot of our dreams up there in Canada. And I then went down this path where I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach in the National Hockey League. And I went and I studied what it was right around the time when it was becoming a thing, right? It was more of a thing, obviously, in college football and then the NFL for having a strength coach. It then moved into the National Hockey League in the late 90s. So I studied, what did these guys have, and they generally had a human exercise or exercise science or exercise physiology or kinesiology degree. So I went and got one of those. And then I got a master's degree in exercise physiology because a lot of them had that too. And along the way, I started speaking at events, and I actually spoke at one in Buffalo in 1999. I can't remember what college it was at, but it was like this 30-person ice hockey strength and conditioning conference. I took a bus down from Hamilton, Ontario to Buffalo. The next morning I walked to the bus station, which I realized in hindsight, probably not a good idea where I walked through. And then, that was like the start of my career, which then transitioned into me writing for Men's Health and taking a totally different path for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And let's talk about that transition. We talk a ton about transitions on this podcast. It was started because of a transition in my life. And you made a huge transition in your life that you talk about going from crippling anxiety attacks to now coaching high performers and entrepreneurs to make the most out of their life. How does one make that shift in their life?
Well, I had anxiety for a number of reasons. And part of it was, I was a typical guy, I didn't share my feelings and that sort of stuff. And I was introverted, so I didn't talk very much. And, I overthink things. And then I had a binge drinking problem. And so I was a good boy 6 days a week, but, come 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon till about 4:00 Sunday morning, it was just from one bar to the next. And that all caught up to me at about age 30. When I was a personal trainer and writing for Men's Health magazine, the best physical shape of my life. And I ended up going to the emergency room twice with what I had thought was, I originally thought I was having a heart attack. It turned out to be an anxiety attack, which I had 2 of them that sent me to the emergency room. And it was along that way where I realized, okay, I'm not going to take any medications. I'm going to figure this out the hard way, which I then did. I turned over every rock. I tried a bunch of stuff, which I didn't like, but was very helpful, from Tai Chi to Qigong to meditation to yoga, just learning how to breathe properly to reduce my stress. And so, it was a journey that took me about 6 months to get out of the real bad state. And then another, I would say 5 years. It was 5 years after that before I started meditation on a regular basis. So it was a long time to get out of it. But I just turned over every rock. Like when you're put in that position, Eric, as when you were in the pros, I'm sure there was an injury that you were able to come back from. And when you're a pro, you turn over every rock, you talk to every expert, you try every modality, you're going to do everything to get back on the field. And it was the same thing in my life, metaphorical field, that was to get back on the field, to be able to be a personal trainer, to do the best that I could. And so for me, that was the start of something that now I help a lot of people overcome. And I get messages, because I've written about this in my books that you've read. I get messages from guys. I was just writing about one guy today. He was a 2-time Iraq tour duty police officer in Dallas. And one day he messaged me at 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday night from the ER. He said he just woke up in the middle of the night with a crushing chest pain from anxiety of trying to start this side business. And I'm like, I know what it's like to go through that. My life's mission is to make sure nobody else does. And in this day and age, you're looking at 10% of the American population suffering from severe anxiety. That's something that is really my mission to help people overcome.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I appreciate you sharing that story in your book. And your book, Unstoppable, details that incredibly. And for me, I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I never experienced any anxiety in my life until my career ended. And it was because I always knew my purpose for that day. And yes, I wanted to be a great husband and a great dad and friend and Christian. I'm a man of faith. So I knew those things, but I also knew I wanted to be the best center in the NFL. So what's my day look like to make that happen? And if I was sitting around on the couch after a workout, when I had exhausted myself, well, now I'm recovering.
Sure.
Well, when you're not being paid to perform that way, sitting around on the couch gives you anxiety. Not knowing what you're going to do with each and every day can give you anxiety. And I recently heard you talk about the paradox of freedom.
Yep.
And this spoke to me greatly. And you mentioned how you can gain anxiety from having too much freedom in your life. And I think that a lot of former pro athletes, former high performers, high earners get that because they have the freedom to do a lot, but they don't have concrete, their vision isn't concrete where they want to go. Can you talk about that paradox of freedom a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it on two levels because I've had it in different ways. One, when I was a young man, before my anxiety attacks, before I found a great job, personal training, is I lost a job that I thought I was going to be at for a long time. And for anybody out there who in this last, crazy year or two that we've been in was displaced from a job, and you're supposed to get up in the morning and go and look for that job and, send out resumes. But I know how crushing that can be. And so you have this entire day and you'll wake up and, you might go and do things like cleaning the house and running errands. And it's a frustrating place to be in. I totally understand that. And then on the flip side, I've had the paradox of freedom from success, where I built this online fitness business when I was a personal trainer that allowed me to stop doing personal training and go full-time online to sell my workout programs to hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And then I didn't have to be anywhere in the morning at 6 o'clock for that, 6 to 11 a.m. personal training shift. I didn't have to be anywhere from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. for that afternoon shift at the gym. And that meant that I could work all the time. And I lived in Toronto, which is kind of like New York. And, in theory, you can go out chasing girls 7 days a week. So I tested that theory. And sure enough, the paradox of freedom that we think we all want, we don't want anybody telling us what to do or whatever.
Right.
It actually backfired on me, which led to the anxiety. And then I realized, Eric, and I talk about it in the book, that I realized that the path to true freedom was the paradox of structure, that structure equals freedom. And there's another famous fellow out there, a guy named Jocko Willink. And right around the time I wrote my first book, he came out with a book and he started saying discipline equals freedom. And I think that might be a phrase from the military, which, he was more involved. Well, I was not involved in the military at all. He was involved in the military. And so we both said the same thing at the same time. And it's the structure equals freedom. And if people think about it this way, when rules are imposed upon us, like when people tell us what to do and we have to be home by a certain time, or we have to do something, or, you get your taxes in at a certain time, there's an inner child in us that wants to rebel against that structure that's imposed upon us. But when we impose the structure upon ourselves, it actually gives us freedom. It gives us, it helps us stick to our vision, which is so important. And it actually helps us perform better because the structure, we've all got these, powerful iPhones and Android phones. And inside these phones that we have is a computer with a powerful operating system. Mm-hmm. And when you have structure for your life, it's like having a powerful operating system in yourself, which is like, I work out at this time every day. I get up at this time every day. I read the Bible for 10 minutes before I get to work in the morning. And then I get to work, and that's your operating system. And when something is taken away from you, like a career in the NFL or a job, all of a sudden your operating system is just blown to bits. And that's what causes the problem. Or when you retire and you go, I've seen the worst things happen to I know mostly men that have retired. So, for a man who retires and whose job was almost part of their identity, and then to go, okay, as soon as 5 o'clock hits on March 31st, the next day you're on your own, buddy. Or if we go back to like the Shawshank Redemption, and remember that movie, he went from, I forget it, then, Red from the movie
Right.
went into the real world, and, he couldn't pee without asking for permission. And, that's an extreme example, but when our structure is taken away from us, it actually can really cripple us until we impose a new structure upon ourselves that can be valuable. And whether that is having a routine, even when you are out of a job, to go and find that new job, or when you're making that incredibly 180 transition that you made, you just got to come up with a new structure, and you'll play around with it and get it wrong a few times at first, but you got to keep fighting and putting that in place, because that's when you're going to be put on the path of success.
Yeah, those those rules for your life are so valuable. And when you were talking about people that move on when they retired, and you hear horror stories of that, I mean, all we were drilled into, it was just constantly drilled into us in the NFL that 86% of players within 2 years upon retirement are either broke or divorced. Don't be the statistic. Get your money right. Find something else. And it was funny. Not often were they saying, hey, you need to find structure in your life. You need to find something you're passionate about, something you can work towards. And yes, it was always, hey, you need a foundation outside of football. And that's all well and good. And that could be a great support system if you have a foundation of family and friends, faith, whatever it may be. That's good. But then you have that statistic out there. And when you don't have that structure, comes a lot of anxiety. And I found it fascinating, how many rules you had for your life within reading your material, and then the variety of them as well. Just give a few examples of maybe a few of them that have been the most beneficial to you.
The rules for my life?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick story is, as you're talking, I'm going to a gym down here in Miami, and it's a really amazing gym. It's called Anatomy, and it's run by a former NFL guy. And, there's so much, he played maybe 4 or 5 seasons and bounced around from teams, but, he went from there, and he's opened this chain of gyms in Miami with some of the most high performing, wealthy individuals in town. And it's just, he runs it as a machine, and it's the culture is everything there. It's just an absolutely fantastic place. So I just wanted to tell people they better get down here, check it out. But it just, his story has a lot of overlap with yours. Now back to the rules for your life. What these are, again, these are the operating system for me. And my operating system is getting up at a certain time every day. It's focusing on my writing for a certain amount of time, which is my most important task in my life for all aspects of my business. I have a rule for my life that I don't curse or swear. And it's just something that, I was raised, going to church all the time. But, when I was hanging around my buddies, I would curse and swear like nobody's business. And then one day I realized, I never swear around my mother. I never swear when I'm speaking on stage at a business event. So I'm going to make a rule for my life that I just don't curse or swear. And I don't think, 99% of people don't notice it, but some people do hear about it in my books, and they're drawn to that, and they want to have conversation, or, some people even hire me because it's one of the things that they connect with on it. You should have a rule for your health. You should have a rule for your wealth building. You should have a rule if you're a faith-based person, you should have a rule around that. I've worked with so many entrepreneurs, Christian entrepreneurs that, say, quote unquote, they didn't have time for Bible study. They totally forgot to get it done. I'm like, if this is important, you make a rule for it, that you make time for it early in the morning, or you stop at a certain time and you make time for it, because we can do everything, or we can do anything. We just can't do everything, as the phrase goes. And so you have to make time for what matters, and you can't try and find time for what matters, because if you try and find time will slip away. So you have to make time for what matters. And that's something that I've always been doing. So those are some of the rules that have given me freedom, because when you have those rules, it's like the game of football, right? Like the game of football, it's not like, oh, if you catch it on one bounce, you can have that. No, you got to catch the ball in the air, and then everybody's playing by the same rules, which allows the game to be played on as fair of a basis as possible. And that's what we all need for our life. The rules just constrain us, and they stop us from going off on these detours in life too.
Incredible stuff. And so you hear these rules from Craig, you see his success, when you watch his videos, you see how diligent and intentional he is with everything he does. But I've also heard you describe yourself as a lazy person. And then others, especially your clients, will refer to you as the most disciplined man in the world. What drives that discipline in you? Not the rules, but what is that inner fuel that drives that discipline?
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a paradox there, but I think a lot of people can relate that we all have weaknesses, right? Maybe somebody's weakness is cheesecake or potato chips or alcohol or some television show or something, and it's like if you just try and avoid those things on discipline and willpower alone, you're always going to have setbacks. And I found, I would love to sit on a Saturday afternoon, sit in front of the TV and watch every college football game. I mean, the television stations have mastered how to make that stuff so entertaining. And I would love to sit there and eat pizza and drink beer and eat chocolate cake. So I'm naturally drawn to that. I want to do it, but I decided that at some point in my life that I wanted to be successful. I wanted to have a great family. I wanted to provide financial security for my family. I wanted to write these books. Writing a book is not a fun thing to do sometimes. It's painful to sit there and write it, but writing that book meant far more to me than taking the path of least resistance. And so even though I am, by nature, as we all are, a little bit lazy and unmotivated and sometimes lacking discipline and weak, as the Bible says, but I just built these systems. I said, okay, you can have a reward after you've done your work, but you have to get up at a certain time. You have to spend 90 minutes writing. You have to be in bed by a certain time. And simply, it's like building a fence around yourself. So, again, I grew up on a farm and we build a lot of fences on the farm to keep the cattle in, to keep other animals out. And if you think about that for your life, what are the distractions? What are the temptations that you're allowing inside your protected area that are preventing you from being successful? Like, again, go back to the phone. The phone is probably the biggest distraction that we all have in common. And whether it's an app or whether it's text messaging or whatever, you can protect yourself from the phone. There's actual physical things you can do. You can remove notifications. You can delete the app and reinstall it later. You can move the app so it's not on your home screen. You can put it in airplane mode. You can physically turn it off and you can physically move it into another room. And those are the things that I do, because if left to my own devices and I had the phone beside me, I'm a weak individual. And if I got a buzz, I'm picking that phone up. So how can you make yourself more disciplined? Simply by removing the distractions and temptations in life. And that was something I learned as a personal trainer. Somebody can come into the gym 4 days a week. They can work hard. They can do everything, but that's 4 hours out of 168 in a week. I can't be with somebody when they go to the Cheesecake Factory on Friday night and then, have to go to a birthday party the next day for their kids and then, go to some luncheon after church on Sunday. I can't be there. So they have to set up systems and rules in place where they only enjoy themselves an extra, piece of cake or piece of pecan pie or something on Sunday. It can't be 7 days a week. So we have to build those things in place. Now, the whole disciplined man thing didn't come from that. It came from the fact that a bunch of my marketer friends knew that I owned a few businesses, and they saw the amount of workouts I was putting out in the fitness business and articles I was writing in the business, building business, and then some other things I had on the go. And they went, "You're the most productive man I know." And then it morphed into the most disciplined man I know. And I certainly don't claim that. I know plenty of people that are more disciplined than me, but I was able to become productive because I removed the temptations and I built in an operating system that made success inevitable. And I think we can all do that in so many areas of our life. The main message here, Eric, is when it comes to success, it's not always about adding more and more and more and more. Like, oh, I got a cold plunge and I got this and I got that and I got, do this and I got to add this thing that I heard about Jocko doing and this thing Eric does and this thing that Tim Ferriss does. No, you know what you need to do? You need to remove the Chick-fil-A nuggets. You need to remove the potato chips from the house. You need to remove the alcohol from the home, and you remove the bombs, and there's way less destruction, and success becomes automatic because now you finally do the basics that get you, to success.
Right. And that's where that structure gives you freedom. That discipline gives you freedom. And it's from removing those. That's such good stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, here's a great football story. I just thought of this one. Vince Lombardi back in the day had the team practice power sweep over and over and over again because he wanted to work 19 or 20 times out of 20. He wasn't adding 19 new plays and flea flickers and all that. I don't know if it existed back then, but it was the basics, basics. And he removed all the things that stopped them from doing the basics, and they won on the basics. And that's something that we all need to remember, that at the end of the day, in any area of our life, we can use the metaphor of it's really the blocking and tackling in your business, in your love life, in the raising of your children, in whatever it is. It's the blocking and tackling. It's not sexy, but it's the stuff that gets you to the championship.
Oh yeah, it's those small daily incremental steps that build up over time, those 1% daily improvements. I'm 100% with you there. You mentioned it a little bit there, removing some of this stuff. And so if people have been tuning in this podcast long enough, they've heard about Ed Milet's morning routine and David Nurse's and John Gordon's, and everyone's got these different deals, whether it's a gratitude practice or whatever it may be, some of which I've implemented in my life and I take with me. But one of the concepts I got from your books was something I needed to hear at that exact time because I was probably adding too much stuff. And yes, it's self-care. Yes, it was beneficial to my life, but I was doing so much of it or trying to add it or cluttering myself with it that I wasn't productive enough. And then I was cluttering out things that were ultimately so important to me throughout my day, whether that be my family or other engagements. And that's a principle you got from the farm, from your dad.
Yeah.
And explain that principle.
Yeah. So in our morning routines, we teach people to get up and go to work as quickly as possible. And, I can go from bed to, effectively working in 12 minutes. And then after we work, we take the reward of doing the meditation or what, Bible study or whatever it is that you want to be the workout, whatever. And I learned on the farm that, cattle don't take a day off eating. You got to do that every single day. So my father was up early, and the first thing he would do is go and feed the cattle. And then he would come back in and have breakfast. And I understand the importance of journaling. I understand the importance of meditation. I understand the importance of exercise. I certainly don't miss it, but it becomes what I call a perverse form of procrastination. It's not meant to be procrastination, but it has morphed into procrastination for a lot of people because it's a lot, as difficult as a workout is, as difficult as it is to meditate, as difficult as it is to do some of these other things, it's a lot harder to sit there and write chapter 3 of the book or to get the edits back from the editor. It's actually even harder to do this, get the edits back from the editor and rewrite some of your favorite stuff because the editor says that's not good enough, and so on and so forth, or insert whatever project it is, do your personal budget or, do your taxes or whatever. No, you just got to get up and do those things. And I'm not the first person to say this. Mark Twain, the great writer Mark Twain, had a phrase. He said, if your job is to eat a frog, best thing to do is eat that frog first thing in the morning. If your job is to eat 2 frogs, best thing to do is eat the biggest frog first. And what he means there is simply get up and go to it. And then recently, a gentleman named Daniel Pink wrote a book called When, the Scientific Perfect Time for Everything, I think is the subtitle. And he says, in the morning, we have a DWI. We have the greatest discipline, willpower, and intention first thing in the morning. And so whatever it is that you're resisting to do, you have the greatest chance of actually doing it first thing in the morning. If you say, I'm going to do it at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, come on, you know, that's not going to happen because the world's going to bring you all these fire alarms. You know, one of the kids is puking at school. You have to go pick them up. Somebody else has a deadline. They're going to miss unless you help them out. You know, spouse has a flat tire, got to go and help them. And then sure enough, it's like 5 o'clock. Oh man, I was busy today, but didn't have anything accomplished. I'll try and get it done tomorrow. I'll try and find time for that big project tomorrow. That's just not how it happens. So first of all, do the work, then reward yourself. And then in terms of, you know, the journaling, the yoga, the meditation, the exercise, the this, the that, the other thing, you just have to go, how much do I need to do to fill up my tank? You know, how much,
Right.
you know, how much time do you have to spend in the cold tub to get the recovery from it? You know, if I go in there for 3 minutes in the cold tub, or if my buddy goes in for 20, is he getting any more benefits? No, he's just spending 17 minutes in there because he doesn't want to go and get the, you know, deep tissue massage because it's more painful. You know, so you got to figure out how much of that stuff do I need to fill up my tank so that I perform at a high level? And I don't just mean as an athlete, I mean as an entrepreneurial athlete, or, you know, simply as a mom or dad athlete in life. You know, this life is quite a challenge for all of us. So figure out how much of that you need, and then reward yourself after you've eaten that frog first thing in the morning. And it's a small change, but if you do it for the next 21 days, I know that you'll see a shift, and you'll say, okay, you know, I may not do this every day, but I'm going to do it most days, because otherwise I just feel like I'm not making progress. I'm just spinning my wheels here. And when people try this, they start to break through.
Yeah, that was a great concept for me to implement into my life. And mentioned earlier, when you get to an NFL facility, your day's drawn out for you as an athlete. So you're given the most important tasks to do when you are structuring your day. So much easier just to knock out those hardest things to do first thing in the morning, whatever that most important thing is to you, knock it out. You said it takes 12 minutes to get to your most important thing. What's in that 12 minutes?
Man, you know, you go to the bathroom, and I got to go and pet my dog for a couple minutes, and then I go and I like to start the day with my friend Bedros Keuilian has this immunity wellness shot. It's, you know, it's like all the most disgusting ingredients like turmeric and cayenne pepper and ginger and some stuff in this little powder. I mix that up. I knock that down. I feel like I've got a victory for my health for the day. Then I drink a little bit more water, and then I open up my computer and I go to work on what I had planned the night before, because that's really something that a lot of people do miss out on. Is they wake up in the morning and they go into figuring out, well, what the heck am I going to do today? They start the planning. But if you're doing your to-do list in the morning, you're already too late. If you're doing your to-do list in the morning, you're already too late. That has to be done the night before. You know, if the football you know, offensive coordinator is planning the first play after, you know, the ball's been kicked to you, and it's probably a little bit too late. You know,
No
you
doubt.
got to be way ahead of the game on that. And so we teach people just in the afternoon every single day. It could be right at lunchtime. It could be the last thing you do before you shut down work for the day. It could be any time in the afternoon. It's just we teach people to do what I call a brain dump, which is get all the things going through your head, you know, all the clutter, all the errands you got to run, all the people you got to call, the things you want to do, all the most important tasks you got to do. Then make a priority to-do list for the next day, and then do a little bit of planning for that number one priority, so that when you wake up in the morning, whether you go to work within 12 minutes or whether you go to work within 2 hours after you've got the kids up and fed and all that sort of stuff, that you know exactly how to get into that most important task right away. Because we all battle with that inertia of starting something that's hard. You know, we've all gone to the gym or known that we have to go to the gym for a workout, and we're like, man, I just don't want to do it today. And, you know, maybe you have a trainer or a coach who says, listen, just do the warm up and then we'll call it a day. And you do the warm up and then you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little better. And it's like, all right, just give me one set, one exercise. Okay. And then the next thing you know, you've had one of the best workouts of your life, but it's that inertia of getting into it. And the preparation the day before helps you dive into something very difficult as quickly as possible. And then you got the momentum and the motivation to keep going and finish it through. And, you know, if you've gotten something done before 9 o'clock in the morning, you know, or earlier, you just feel like $1,000,000. You really do.
Definitely. You mentioned your morning drink. I have my own very similar ingredients to what you were saying. I'm going to have to check out your buddy's drink as well, compare them a little bit. As I've done podcast appearances and people ask me about my morning routine and I describe my morning drink, it becomes the thing I'm literally asked most about on Instagram direct messages afterwards.
So funny.
It's not, anything else I shared. It's not all my tips on transitioning in life. It's strictly, hey, what was in that morning drink you talked about? And
everybody's looking for the magic powder, man.
No doubt. And I hope people appreciate, and they will through digging into more of your work. It's yes, you're striving for success in life. You want to live to your full potential in life. And all of Craig's practices will get you to that next level, but they also are teaching you to be more productive so that you can have an extremely well-rounded life that includes time to pursue your health, your family, your faith, experiences. It's about being well-rounded in all buckets. So a lot of what
I'm grateful you brought that up, Eric. Sorry to interrupt, but some people think, I get up early. I'm not telling anybody else to get up super early. It's not about the hour that you get up. It's about what you do with the hours that you are up. And people are like, oh man, that's, so structured, so disciplined. I want to be spontaneous. Well, listen, if you're structured and disciplined, you get your work done on time. And, if you do work outside of the home, you can actually get home on time for dinner and not be thinking about work and be present with your children at night. Like that's what we're doing this for. Okay. We're not going to work and working hard so that we can sit in traffic for 45 minutes in the morning. That's not the point. The end goal is to provide our families with something that maybe we didn't have when we grew up. The end goal is to actually be able to attend the children's games and not, be drawn to the phone because you're trying to finish off a project. I want you to have true freedom at night because you had structure in your day. And I say that because most people's jobs still are generally work during the day and at night. Now, obviously there are some, great people that work as pediatric, nurses overnight or factory work, which is what I did in the summer times to pay for college. I know that you do have to, some people do that, do work in shifts and stuff, but the principles still apply. When you have the greatest energy and focus, you do the hardest work. And then that allows you to be focused and free for the rest of your day with your family. And that's what it's all about.
Exactly. And I know with your background in the fitness industry, there are certain nutritional philosophies I'm sure you follow to be able to fuel each and every day to the best of your ability. What are those general nutrition philosophies that you'll follow?
Man, I have tried so many things over the years, and I have just fallen back into this approach, which really is a great metaphor for almost all my approaches. My approach to life is keep it as simple as possible. I believe life is simple. We all just happen to make it really hard on ourselves. So I consume generally 3 meals a day. I've tried fasting. I've tried, intermittent fasting. I've tried 6 meals a day. And I just found neither one of them suited me. So the big message is introspection, self-reflection, and self-testing to find what works for you. But I eat 3 meals a day. I'm usually up for about 2 hours before I eat breakfast because I'm not hungry. And then, it's generally a high protein breakfast. And then at lunchtime, I have a big green smoothie and some other, maybe a sandwich, maybe a peanut butter sandwich on some almond bread or something like that. And then at dinner at night is meat and potatoes or fish and quinoa, like some variation of meat and potatoes. And it's just that there's a lot of greens, at lunchtime and at dinner time. And that's about it, man. And honestly, at the end of the day, for me, it is just keep the diet bombs, diet distractions, diet destruction out of the house. And then you do a pretty good job. That's, so I got to keep the chocolate ice cream out of the house and the chocolate.
Yeah, with young kids at the stage we have, it's amazing how much junk I'll have to avoid on a day-to-day basis. But I have rules in my life that I like. It's not an option to me when I walk in the pantry in the morning to grab the cereal. Like that's
right.
Not an option to me. So it doesn't even clutter my brain. That's not giving me decision fatigue. I like your concept on just keeping it simple because we can. Right. You can bog yourself down just simply from decision fatigue. From if you listen to enough podcasts, you can hear 10 different diets and 10 different ways to do it. Introspection is absolutely key. One more before we get to the recurring questions, and that is I've heard you talk about the destructive effects of too much caffeine and how that will crush your productivity in the afternoon. This is something that since reading your books, I've dialed back on, and I didn't understand it fully.
Yeah. So caffeine is something that stays in your bloodstream for a long time. So some people are more sensitive to caffeine. Some people, like my mom, can have a cup of coffee and go to bed at 8 o'clock at night and go to bed 3 hours later and not be affected by it. But what generally tends to happen is if you consume caffeine too late in the day, then your sleep, either you will not be able to fall asleep as well, or your sleep quality will suffer, which most people don't give a lot of attention to the actual sleep quality. Think, oh, I was in bed for 8 hours, I'm good. But now we can track our sleep and see all that stuff. And too much caffeine can stop you from having a good sleep, which means you wake up in the morning tired and you think you need more caffeine. You get in this vicious cycle. Now, caffeine can also increase anxiety. So anybody that's prone to stress and anxiety and is already pretty wound up, it's only going to make things worse. So what I recommend is starting with smaller doses of caffeine. And, if you get up and have a coffee and then have a smaller one, maybe late morning, that's probably about all that you need. And any more is going to impact and impair your sleep that night, which again puts you in that vicious cycle. So just start dialing back a little bit. It's very difficult. Like for the amount of, I know some people that consume an outrageous amount of caffeine because it is just so readily available and in so many beverages these days. And people might not even realize that caffeine is in some beverages. So you do have to do a little bit of research there just to make sure you're not consuming something. Like I bet most people don't even know that Mountain Dew has caffeine. Right. And, so they're drinking a Mountain Dew at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Diet Mountain Dew or something. Man, there's like a ton of caffeine in there and they're wondering why. They're tossing and turning. So you do need to be very careful about that.
Yeah. And that's something I've been cognizant of. And I've heard you talk about how the coffee nowadays isn't like it was 20 years ago. Like everything in our society, we kind of take it up, becomes more addictive. More caffeine in the drink is going to make it more addictive. So just be cognizant of how much your caffeine you're consuming on a day-to-day basis, because it's probably a lot higher than you think. And as I've learned over the years, I was instructed to give up caffeine for 1 week. You could reset your caffeine tolerance in 1 week if you give it up completely. Yes, you're going to have a headache day one and day two, extra pink Himalayan salt, tons of water. That'll help knock out that a little bit, but you could reset it in a week. Now you can go back to having a cup of coffee, catching that little lift, that buzz you were looking for. 1 week. It's not super fun. And if you've never done it before, you're going to want to kill me after the first couple of days.
Yeah.
But it will show some benefits in your life. All right. Absolutely. A few recurring questions. Besides your own, what's your favorite book?
Relentless by Tim Grover got me through some tough times. And for sports fans, you're going to love it because he was Michael Jordan's personal trainer.
Good stuff. What role does your faith play in your life?
Man, it keeps me from making detours. Everybody knows the straight line to success, but I mean, America offers a lot of detours. As a Canadian living down here, I mean, I've been down to America a lot, but living down here, holy cow, can you get into a lot of trouble pretty quick.
Especially in Miami, where you're at right now. I had, if you haven't listened to this episode, we had Junior Bridgeman on the podcast. So for those tuning in, because you're Craig Ballantyne fans, go back, look up the Junior Bridgeman episode. So if you're not familiar with him, journeyman NBA player. He's now the second richest NBA player of all time behind Michael Jordan, built a restaurant empire, owns Coca-Cola bottling and distributing for all of Canada, 5 states in the U.S. But he is 66 years old and has the best reputation of any person I've ever met in my life. And I asked him on the podcast how he kept that reputation over all those years. And he said, I just have guidelines. I have guardrails in my life, and I just never veer from those. And I know that I'll never embarrass myself or my family if I never veer from those guidelines. A lot of those are spiritually based, and that's where
he's just making life simple. He's just making life so simple.
Right. Exactly. What was your first car?
My first car was, it's not exciting. It's one of those little box red Ford Topazes, like the mini version of the Taurus.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's your favorite restaurant?
Prime 112 in Miami, which
Solid spot.
can get you into trouble.
I know. I was there a few months ago, and that was pre-vaccination really being very popular. And if there wasn't a COVID outbreak from every night in Prime 112, it would greatly surprise me.
I know. Miami is it's like 2019 down here.
No doubt. Last one from me. What's next for Craig Ballantyne? What's coming down the pipeline?
That's a great question. I don't have any more books. I've written 3, and I think I'm going to take a break on that. But for me, family life, getting married soon, going to have kids. But on the business side of things, I realized over the years as a personal trainer, as an online fitness expert, as a business coach, that accountability is the secret ingredient to success. We all have the information. All the information is out there for free on YouTube, but why is everyone not more successful? It's because they don't have accountability to taking action on the information. And so I've built an accountability app called Winning Streak, and we're starting to get that out. We've just had it out for a couple months now, and it's really neat to see the impact that we're having on people, just to keep them on board with their guidelines.
I will definitely check that out. I agree 100%. I work with an executive coach in my life. I have since my last season in the NFL. I wish I had him prior, but accountability is something that we all need in life, whether it's an accountability partner, a life coach, a friend, an app. And I'm assuming with the Winning Streak, it's something you punch in daily. People are addicted to those streak apps. Well, now you're making it beneficial for them in their lives. Craig, I can't thank you enough for your time here today. I'll put links to your website in the show notes. We'll put the titles of your books. Where can people get to know you better online as well?
Real Craig Ballantyne on Instagram. So that's the social media that I use the most, Real Craig Ballantyne. And then probably the best place to check out one of my books is my newest book, perfectweekformula.com. That one, if someone wants to start with any of the books, that's the one that they'll get the most mileage from.
Good deal. Thanks, brother. Thanks again for your time.
Appreciate it.